of the Washington County Board of Education. I call this meeting to order and declare a quorum. We have all members present, our student member as well. This time I invite you to stand with us as we do the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. How often does it happen? Thank you. Okay, let's begin with approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval? All right, we have a unanimous vote. Student member concurs. We'll move to the approval of the minutes.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated July 11th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Zentmeyer. Okay, we're voting now on the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the business meeting minutes dated July 11th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes of July 11th, 2023? All right, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approval? All right, we have a unanimous vote and the student member concurs. Great. We'll begin this evening with the superintendent's report. Dr. Savine, I'll turn things over to you.
President Williams, members of the board, even though we're still in the midst of summer break, students have been competing and achieving at the state and national levels in contests, and we would like to celebrate their accomplishments this evening. This is for students in our career and technical education programs and also a CTE student group. Dr. Gary Willow, our Associate Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, will come forward and share more about these recognitions.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Savine, members of the board. It is a pleasure to be in front of you this evening. If you recall, back in the spring, we celebrated a number of state winners for Skills USA. Our students went off to Atlanta to compete at the national level, and we had students competing in everything from teacher preparation to electrical work, and we had a top 3 winner in the entire country. So I think that's a round of applause, right? Even before I introduce them. So representing our third place, again, national champions, if you will, from Boyd J. Michael Technical High School for Career Pathways, Business Management, and Technology. I'd like to introduce Lance Littensberger. Jack Nelson, who was unable to attend this evening, and Aiden Wood. Also from Boyd J. Michael Technical High School this evening, our staff, Mr. Long, Mrs. Potter, and our principal, Mr. Stike. I'd also, if you'd join me in giving them a round of applause as well.
Congratulations, Lance.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.
principal up here.
Aaron would be mad if you mess it up.
Aaron's watching, Joe. All right, everybody, right here on three. 1, 2, 3. Excellent, congratulations.
All right. I also have the pleasure of introducing some of our FFA Maryland champions. And so every year, our FFA groups participate in the Maryland Convention, and we have a number of champions. Unfortunately, due to vacations, mission trips, not everyone was able to make it tonight, but we're still going to recognize all of those even if they weren't able to attend. So up first, in first place for agricultural communications. And then there is no one here this evening from this team, but this team is from Clear Spring High School. We have Danielle Vaughn, Emily Yonker, Emily Shoemaker, and Greenlee Alshire. Again, from Clear Spring High School, agricultural communications. Joining us this evening from Boonesboro High School. First place again in the marketing plan, Destiny Hurt, Paige Rohr, Faith Santora. Also from Boonesboro High School, we have in the competition for meat evaluation, Samantha DeLeo, Lily Rumpf, Caitlin Wiles, Taylor Wiles, and again, from Boonesboro High School meat evaluation. We have one state champion for Boonesboro High School again in the category of dairy handler, Addison Malott. We have a number of students that were recognized for earning the state FFA degree. That is Brooke Rudy and Aubrey Shank from Boonesboro High School. From Clear Spring High School, we have Brandon Beatty, Graham Bresler, Blake Buzzard, Tegan Clay, and Madison Toms. Again, all from Clear Spring High School. Another award this evening that we'd like to recognize is the State Star for Green Hand Award, and that is Alexis Eismingers from Boonesboro High School. And we have one more award this evening. Brooke was not able to make it, but we still want to recognize Brooke Rudy from Boonesboro High School for the State FFA Proficiency Award Gold winners. Board members, once again, it's a pleasure to show that our CTE programs here are alive and well, from Skills USA to the work in our agricultural programs. We have a lot to be proud of and celebrate. So if you join me one more time in congratulating these students. I apologize. I also want to just add the three staff members that are here this evening as well. Mrs. Warner and Mrs. Comstock, who are our FFA teachers, agriculture teachers at Boonesboro High School. I also see Dr. Kahanik, who is also here, the principal of Boonesboro High School as well. So thank you.
Mike, come on. We'll get a picture for you.
Right. Right here on three. 1, 2, 3. Second. Right. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Excellent.
President Williams, that concludes the first portion of my report for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. We have, excuse me, no one who has signed up in advance. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to come forward to speak during public comment? Yes, please come forward. Good evening. Mrs. Mallon, I don't believe I need to go through the policy with you. I think you're familiar with the policy and the time allocation.
I am,
And
and
our
I have to
timer over
say,
here?
I practiced and was like 25 seconds
Okay.
over. So I'm going to try to go really, really fast,
All
but
right.
thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. Okay. I ask you to consider, what do these items have in common? Dozens of clipboards, some old, some not. Almost 100 organizer bins, some labeled, some not. Hundreds of pens, paper clips, binder clips, and note cards. Boxes of games for various ages and stages. Stacks of graph paper and lined paper. Rulers, scissors, algebra tiles, and flashcards. Shoe pocket organizers for cell phones. Bulletin board borders and window clings. Seasonal decorations for fall, winter, and spring. A collection of books, bags, backpacks, and other things. These are just some of the items currently awaiting transport from the WCTA office to the WCTA teacher closet, a designated South Hagerstown High School classroom that will be transformed into a free shopping space for new educators joining us next week for the Teacher Induction Academy. Teachers who are new to WCPS are invited to shop for free at the WCTA Teacher Closet on Monday and Wednesday at South High. Leftover items will be available at the WCTA office after August 9th. All WCTA and WCESP members can then come by to shop through the remaining items for students, families, and schools. Just call me at the office first to make sure someone is there to unlock the closet before coming. Now, special thanks go to our membership committee chairperson, Giovanna Grimm, for spearheading the event, and also to retired teacher Robin Spickler for her work in organizing all the donations, and of course to all the WCTA members who donated gently used or new items to the closet. The teacher closet is just one way that WCTA provides support to our students and schools, but it takes more than supplies to support student learning. It takes heart and grit and determination and bravery. It takes the ability to juggle hundreds of decisions each hour of the workday and the knowledge to know how the hundreds of choices made each day affect each one of our students. WCTA members appreciated the board's effort to provide our unit with increased compensation this year, and we were disappointed that you could not fulfill the contract we ratified in June. But as we enter this new school year, we will work through another negotiation cycle, this time with added complexities that implementing the blueprint for Maryland schools adds to our plates. The promises of the blueprint could transform our schools, and one of these major areas of transformation is the concept of a teacher workday, a workday that could provide more time within the school day for teachers to plan and collaborate, grade, and reflect on student learning. Imagine if we could upend the status quo so that teachers could leave work at work without the nagging knowledge that to be fully prepared for tomorrow, they still have to grade work at home or stay up late to plan the next day's lesson. They could leave work at work and find that work-life balance that so many have missed. During the COVID closure, the WCTA Board of Directors sought to put a new buzz phrase into the ears of our administrative leaders. You may remember us bringing it to you as well. We said that we should make decisions about school schedules for teachers and students on what the research shows is best for brains and bodies. I hope that as we move forward with the challenges to implement blueprint legislation, WCTA will be included in these decisions that will enable us to finally reach that goal. 3 years ago, in May of 2020, the Board of Directors of WCTA adopted a set of 6 belief statements. They're still on our website and are still relevant. I leave you with the first three as a reminder that we still have much work to do to ensure that we provide all the resources, including school supplies, to reach the WCPS vision to educate and enable all students to fully access opportunities afforded them in a rapidly changing, diverse global society. We believe that free, quality, equitable, and accessible public education is a fundamental civil right that is vital to sustaining and improving democracy. Young people, regardless of who they are, where they are from, what they can do, or what they believe, must be educated in the skills and mindsets needed to be responsible, productive, and healthy humans and citizens. Mental and emotional and physical wellness, including trauma-informed care of students, families, school employees, and the overall Washington County community, must be a priority and be fully resourced and implemented in order for meaningful work and learning to occur. It is a hope that WCTA leadership, that through our advocacy we can help to turn the page on past attitudes about school funding and about what it takes to educate our students for the challenges we cannot know or imagine, but that we know with certainty the future will bring. We look forward to working with you, Dr. Sovine, our school communities, and the elected board to make our vision become a reality. Thanks.
Thank you, President Mallon. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak at this time? Good evening. I don't believe I need to go through the policy for you either, right?
No,
Okay.
I got it. Got it. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, my name's Ethan Lowen. Over the last few weeks, several events have occurred that are powerful social commentary. One of these events is found in America's reaction to two movies. One is the movie Elemental. It's from Pixar. This movie was made as a result of the promise that the CEO of Disney made 2 years ago. Disney owns Pixar, similar to how it owns Marvel. That Disney would promote LGBT. And for reasons I have never heard anyone explain why, promoting LGBT is usually accompanied with removing the idea of men and women from society. Similar to how last year the National Teachers Union proposed removing mom and mother from their documents and replacing those words with the term birthing parent. Or how this board allows teachers to ask children if they are okay being called a boy or a girl, or if they would rather be called they or them. Similarly, Disney is rolling out gender-neutral costumes and hairstyles in their parks, and staff are no longer allowed to use words such as ladies and gentlemen. And the movie Elemental is the strongest attempt to tell children that the biology of male and female is bigoted of any Disney movie to date. As a result, Elemental is the second worst performing movie in Pixar's history and is on track to become the biggest money-losing movie of the year. The only Pixar movie that performed worse was the one that was released 9 days before the COVID lockdowns began. What makes the reaction to that movie such a powerful statement is that Pixar has been the most universally loved movie experience for every demographic of family for over 20 years. But now, families of every demographic have rejected this movie. And the premise of this movie is the same premise shared not only by certain movie companies, not only by the National Teachers Union, but also by local school boards, such as this one, that use terms such as diversity, equity, and inclusion to describe their beliefs. Terms that sound fantastic, and the slogans used to describe diversity, equity, inclusion are even more appealing. But there is an evil side to telling children to ignore science. There is an evil side to telling children to ignore the standards their families raise them with. There comes a time in every person's life when they will choose the standards they are going to continue or the ones they will change. But to methodically pull a child away from their family's standards is a terrible thing. Therefore, in contrast to America's reaction to the Elemental movie is America's reaction to the movie Sound of Freedom, which is the real-life story of a Department of Homeland Security officer who created an organization that deals not with Disney's and the diversity, equity, and inclusion slogans portrayal of the consequences of those actions. Rather, this organization deals with the reality of what happens when adults ignore the science of children's welfare and to work against the blanket of safety that families provide. That movie was made at 10% of the cost of Elemental. It was unadvertised, was shown in less than half the theaters of Elemental, and yet it is tracking to be one of the 10 most profitable movies of the year. America's reaction to these two movies is Americans yelling out, targeting children to make them think the way you want instead of waiting for them to become adults and then choosing whether they want to think your way. That is evil. To make matters worse, we can also see the harm caused by these beliefs by looking at the effects that this school board's policies have had. When parents came before this board 2 years ago protesting the pornographic library books, the Equity Ideology Board members kept the pornography in our schools. despite the well-documented mental health issues that exposure to pornography causes children. It was expressed that what matters is that these books promote a view of LGBT that fits with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Whether this board is correct about its views of LGBT, the issue is the harm this board is willing to risk to children in the pursuit of those goals. When last summer the superintendent did a tour of the community during the meeting held at South High School, a mother asked the superintendent, "What is the board's stance on transitioning children from one gender to the other, such as other schools have done, without telling parents?" The superintendent asked the board's attorney to answer that question. The attorney stood up and stated that this board has not written a policy on it. Rather, the board is using guidelines from the state. And with that, the attorney sat down, blocking that mother and all families from knowing what could happen to our children. There are several other events that occurred throughout the year, but for the sake of time, I will skip through them and end with the most recent event that occurred 2 months ago, when one of our high school female athletes spoke to this board in response to this board allowing boys to compete in female sports and participating in a culture of peer pressure to make female athletes change in front of boys in the locker rooms. And this 15-year-old female athlete stated, "Who are you to force me into a situation where my first experience with a penis could occur in your locker rooms?" To the credit of the equity ideologists on this board, the majority of them expressed that they do not believe girls should be forced to strip in front of boys. While there is some positivity to take from that response, the fact that families were raising the alarm all the way back here with their discovery of pornography in the school libraries, but you didn't understand what parents saw and understood until all the way here, when high school girl athletes are now in a situation that could be described as sexual abuse. It accentuates the lack of understanding that equity ideologists have for the safety and welfare of children and the wisdom of parents. It is time for this board to acknowledge the harm it has caused students and to reverse those policies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward, speak during this time? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues? Okay. Moving on to old business. Our first item of old business is an action item. It's the second reading of proposed changes to policy JLF, reporting of suspected child abuse and/or child neglect, child sexual abuse prevention, instruction and training, and the Employee Code of Conduct. Good evening, Mrs. Ram.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. The Policy Committee recommended and the Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to Policy JLF at the July 11th, 2023 public business meeting. The committee posted a notice on board docs and the school system's website following the approval of the first reading in order to seek comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments. The committee is now recommending that the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to Policy JLF.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JLF entitled Reporting of Suspected Child Abuse and/or Child Neglect, Child Sexual Abuse Prevention, Instruction and Training, and the Employee Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Is there any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JLF. All those in favor? All right, and the student member concurs. You have a unanimous vote. Motion carries. Our next action item is the second reading of proposed changes to policy BD, types and notification of meetings.
The Policy Committee recommended and the Board of Education approved at the July 11th, 2023 public business meeting proposed changes to Policy BD. The committee posted a notice on board docs and the school system's website following the approval of the first reading in order to seek comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to Policy BD.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy BD entitled Types and Notifications of Meetings.
Thank you, Mrs. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy BD. All those in favor? All right, thank you. We have a unanimous vote. Student member concurs. Motion carries. That brings us to our next action item, which is the second reading of proposed changes to policy BDDG, board minutes.
The Policy Committee recommended and the Board of Education approved at the July 11th, 2023 public business meeting proposed changes to policy BDDG. The committee posted a notice on Board Docs and the school system's website following the approval of the first reading in order to seek comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy BDDG.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy BDDG entitled Board Minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the vote. The vote is to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy BDDG. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote. Student member concurs. Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to new business. Have another policy to consider. This is a first reading of proposed changes to policy KD, opportunity for public comment at board business meetings, town meetings, public hearings, and the procedures governing such proceedings.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy KD at its public work sessions on June 29th and July 19th, 2023. The committee made changes to the policy that will, if approved, require individuals who address the Board of Education but who do not sign up to speak prior to the start of the meeting or in advance of the meeting to sign a log located at the speaker's table. The purpose of the change is to assist the board secretary in ensuring that the official minutes contain an accurate listing of individuals who speak at business meetings, town meetings, and public hearings. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KD.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KD entitled Opportunity for Public Comment at Board Business Meetings, Town Meetings, and Public Hearings, and the procedures governing such proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Victor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Are there any questions, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KD. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote, and the student member concurs. The next item of consideration is the first reading of proposed changes to policy BDDJ, broadcasting and recording of Board of Education meetings.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy BDDJ at its public work session on July 19th, 2023. The committee made changes to the policy in order to align the policy with the current broadcasting and recording practices, and the policy has also been placed in the correct format. In addition, recommended changes eliminate those portions of the policy that are démodé, such as making DVD copies of the meetings available. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy BDDJ.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of policy BDDJ entitled Broadcasting and Recording of Board of Education Meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, any discussion? All right, move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of policy BDDJ. All those in favor? Okay, we have a unanimous vote, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Ram.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is this evening's consent agenda, and we have Mr. Scott Bakewell, the Supervisor of Purchasing, present. Good evening, Mr. Bakewell.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. Tonight, I have 7 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for Unified Communications and Contact Center replacement to NWN Carousel, Inc. at an approximate 3-year cost of $965,958. Operation of employee health clinic services and/or pharmaceutical services to Everside Health, LLC at an approximate 3-year cost of $7 million. Library Management System Software renewal and Follett Destiny Resource Manager renewal to Follett at a cost of $86,849.22. Food truck build-out to Rolling Kitchens Custom, Inc. at a cost of $57,700. Office supplies and services to the supply room at the unit prices listed. Kitchen smallwares and small equipment to Samtel and Sons, Inc., MTS Equipment, Johnny's, Inc., and Douglas Equipment at the unit prices listed, and fence installation at various schools to Long Fence Company, Inc., at a cost of $103,075.
Thank you, Mr. Bakewell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, any discussion? Mr. Gesford?
I do have some questions about this food truck build-out. It seems like a 24-year-old vehicle that typically we change out for other vehicles when we have them in the fleet. It seems like that might be a very high year to have adding $57,000 to it. It doesn't tell me what type of equipment you're putting in this food truck. I'd like to know what the food truck equipment is.
So it's a fully functional food truck. So it'll have a griddle, it'll have refrigerators, sinks, a fire suppression system, shelving to prepare, the food. It's a fully operational food truck.
And you're putting in a 24-year-old truck.
Correct. Yeah, the truck was given to Tech High last year, and their automotive students went over and did a full kind of rehab of the mechanics of the truck. Did all of the went over the engine, went over replaced the tires, things of that nature, and then CTE wanted to take that then and turn that into a food truck that they could use as kind of a mobile kitchen to take to different schools, rather than putting kitchen equipment within the school. Students will be able to utilize that, at multiple schools. Tech High, I think South High, North High, I think were some of the ones that were mentioned. And then also use it as, a food truck for an opportunity for kids to kind of learn that business as well.
I get that, and
Yeah.
I can appreciate the learning part of it, being in the restaurant business in the past. It's a good thing. But to put, $57,000 worth of equipment, and I know equipment, this is very expensive, and our fleet services that we have every so many years, you don't come back here and tell us that we have to change out fleets because it's just time. Not
Right,
because
right.
the run's still good,
Right,
but
right.
it's just time. When was the time up for this truck?
I don't know that I have the answer for that. I would say that this truck won't get used like our service fleet will, right? This would only get used in very sporadic, if you will, where our fleet trucks, the mechanics and stuff are out on the road 5 days a week,
Again, it's
going-
not, the fleet's not about how much we use it, it's just the time that it's time to get rid of it.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't want to vote on this, and we're putting $57,000 into it, and then a year later, someone comes along and says, I'm sorry, that has to be removed, and we have to get it because it's time.
All very valid points. So when we looked at this option, We looked at it a number of ways, Mr. Gesford. You know, what would be the cost of a new truck? What would be the cost of looking at used trucks that were out there? The reason that we ended up going this way, and we did look at a number of options, was because the truck itself is the old meal machine, and it is still in very good shape. And so what I mean by that is with our new diesel program at Technical High School, we were able to really get good value from this truck. And so if we were to go about where this truck is serving, south, north, Marshall Street, and we were looking to expand kitchen usage there, we'd be looking at much higher rates because a lot of those were still caught into where we're grandfathered in, where we don't have all of the hoods, the fire suppression systems that you are familiar with from working in the restaurant industry. So we see this as a tremendous value. We would not put a 1 year into this. There was a lot of looking from the engine all the way through, like what was the rust, that kind of before we made this decision. A new food truck can run anywhere from very low end, 100,000, all the way up to 250 plus. And with those smaller ones, it's a much smaller size, which makes it more difficult to have more students in there. This is still a really good size. We also had this truck on display for those that were doing the work to make sure that it indeed can be done. So we've looked at it from a number of different ways, and this is where we came back as the most cost effective, but also the best opportunity for a number of our students to engage in this program.
How long do you think this is going to be in the fleet service? I mean, I know that's not going to be the same thing, but I mean, are you anticipating this thing being around in 10 years and still fully functional, even though that we're not using it very much? I mean, so that usage is not going to be into the variance of that. So it's more of, is the truck going to hold up during that period of time?
We believe so. I can't sit here and guarantee you that, anything that'll go 10 years anymore, even if we bought it brand new. I don't know that we could guarantee you 10 years, but we see this as a multiple year project that we're going to get value from.
Dr. Willow, I appreciate your explanation, and there are two things on this consent agenda this evening that I'm very excited about. This is one of them. Not only did this provide a wonderful hands-on opportunity for our students at Tech High in the purposing of this food truck, but it's going to also be utilized by students in helping them with other hands-on learning. So I'm truly excited about the possibilities of this truck. Is there anything that we're purchasing for this truck in this amount of money that cannot be removed from this truck and utilized in another way, should there be the need to determine that this truck is no longer of service?
That's an excellent question, President Williams. You would be able to use some of the equipment. For example, the grill, the griddle, those things can be repurposed. The refrigeration, the sinks, some of that stuff that's custom for that truck, you'd have to find another one that would be that standard size. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that everything would be repurposed, but I do think a number of items in that truck would be able to be repurposed if something happened. I also, remind that our diesel program at Tech and our auto body program, both collision repair and are able to work on cars. This is what they do. They're able to fix things up. So when we do the projects over there, and we've shared pictures of the paint jobs we've done with board members in the past, we do things at a much lower cost, which allows us to maintain student trade foundation vehicles. And so this is how we look at this, to being able to maintain this longer than maybe what we'd be able to do with our fleet service.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Colleagues, any?
Yeah, so I will say that one thing I was originally completely against, but I've had my mind changed on, is this employee health center. I know when we were talking about it in the early stages, we were wondering if it was going to be something that we would run or if we would hire a third party to kind of run it. I see there's a 3-year lease with this company. Is that something that we plan on maybe not necessarily the same company, but just plan on renewing the lease and letting a third party run that? Or is that something that we may eventually turn into running on our own or anything like that?
You mean us hiring like the
Our own
doctors and
doctors,
stuff?
yeah.
I don't know that that was that's something that we've talked about, but maybe I wasn't part of that conversation.
No, that's fine. And then, because obviously that is quite a bit of money there, so my really big concern with it is with the amount of money that we're putting into it, I would really like to see, obviously, the first year, just implementing it, it's probably going to be not really that cost effective, but I would really like to see over the course of 3 years, at the end of each year, what kind of efficiency and productivity we were able to gain out of that. So is that something that we can commit to, and each year, a year from now on August 1st, come back and say, hey, this is what kind of money we were able to save for the employee health fund?
Maybe, Scott, I'll chime in. I think we're really excited about this clinic as well. And so, in the write-up, through the work and assistance of our consultants at Gallagher, we've estimated that the return on investment back to the self-insurance fund is $1.7 for every dollar we put in. And I think that's a conservative estimate. We put the companies through several paces, and I would share that the estimated return on investment from this particular firm is nearly double the 1.7 that we're putting in. I mean, in some of their estimations, their thought is, in a 5-year term, they may have a cost slightly more than $10 million and could potentially save us as much as $35 million. And so, the net savings over 5 years to the self-insurance fund is $25 million, which is incredible. To your question, we absolutely can report to you, perhaps on, let's say, the anniversary of when the clinic actually opens. We can report annually both to the board and to the finance committee on the operations of the clinic. This particular firm as well has also put their fees at risk. So if in 5 years, let's say if we go through the extensions, we go through the 3-year and then the 2 1-year renewals thinking it's going to come, it's going to come, it's going to come, and it doesn't come, and let's say we've paid $10.2 million and we've only saved in the insurance fund $8 million, they will make up the difference, so we're net zero. Their fees are fully at risk.
Okay, very good. And then my only other question is about the Fallout program. I understand that there's quite a bit that they do for our technology and media departments. Why don't we have any other quotes on that? And what all is that used for? I know we use it for inventorying a lot of the, I'm guessing all the student devices that we give them. I'm sure the media centers, the devices they have in there. What all does that entail, and why do we not have a comparative quote on that?
So I'll take the inventory side. Gary can maybe talk about the library media side. So if you may recall, dating back 5 or 6 years to our last Office of Legislative Audits review, keeping greater track of computer items and sensitive materials, smaller items that didn't meet our fixed asset category to be tagged with fixed assets, is something that the Office of Legislative Office wanted. So we needed a system to track all of those things. Laptops, iPads, graphing computers, or calculators, you name it. That whole list of things are inventoried and loaded in that system so we know where they are, who they've been issued to, and so forth. This is a renewal, so it's not something that we necessarily go out for quotes for on a regular basis. It is also on a national contract through, I think, Scott, the Buy Board contract. So we're actually piggybacking a bid that's done by another agency, but at the time that we installed this system on the inventory side for their asset management, we did full review of multiple companies and received quotes at that time. This is a renewal on the original purchase that the board did a few years back.
And I would just simply add to what Mr. Prue said, a lot of it is inventory related. You have large collections in the library media. This is the system that allows students to check out books, for parents to be able to go online and review books. So similar to what Mr. Prue shared there, there's value to it, and that's why both technology and library media team up on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Back to the health clinic. So how will this work? How does this benefit employees?
So the plan really is, first and foremost, more concierge service for employees. So, the term often actually that companies use through our interview process is, we don't treat and treat. So the physicians, the medical assistants will spend more time with our employees, getting better health engagement with our employees, getting them more in tune with their health and their health needs so that they're seeing that doctor or that physician's assistant on a regular basis, following up on labs, and spending a little more time on medical history and care so that you're preventing the more catastrophic loss. Secondary to that, from a cost-benefit perspective, because we are paying for the clinic itself, there's no cost to the employee, so there's no copay. So I'm more apt to go to the employee clinic because I can avoid the copay I would have in a traditional doctor's office, especially if I can use the extended hours. We're looking at 51 hours of service over the course of a week. So if I can get early morning or late afternoon or early evening hours and avoid going to an urgent care that also is higher copay and higher cost to the plan, we have cost avoidance within that program. They also have the ability to, they'll have a small array, let's say, of generic drugs on hand. So if the employee needs a Z-Pak, let's say, for a sinus infection, that Z-Pak is available right there in the clinic. The employee can be handed that Z-Pak on the way out the door to then save them a visit and another copay at the pharmacy. So there's several benefits to the employees at that level, and I think the employees as a whole will enjoy the better engagement, more time with a physician in the office. Appointments will be left open every day for emergency call-ins. I'm sick, I need to come in, not as opposed to just the annual checkup. So all companies that I've heard of that install a clinic, it's just a great benefit to employees.
Do you know where it will be located yet?
We don't. That's the first order of business. We've been dabbling around looking online to find medical space that's currently built out and available in the community, but that's the first order of business.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Prue, this is the second item on the consent agenda that I'm particularly excited about. And not only am I excited about the possibility of the return on investment, but the tremendous service that it has the potential to provide for our employees. I think it'll be a great thing for perhaps recruiting and retention. And so my question, so thank you for asking the question, because I was going to ask you, because we have a write-up here as part of our packet for you to explain to those listening and those here in the audience, those listening at home, exactly what we're talking about here and how it would be beneficial for the employees of Washington County Public Schools. So my question is, do we know where something like this has been tried, has been established, and has worked well, other systems? And do we know where it has been attempted and perhaps folded because it has not worked well?
President Williams, if I may, in my previous district, we implemented this during the pandemic. And by far, it was the most celebrated initiative that we had locally from our employees. So it received rave reviews in my previous district. And those, as we were analyzing the clinic pharmacy concept, those that had implemented like we're considering or the board will take action on under consent agenda, were very favorable in terms of the results. The figures, just like you heard tonight, were very conservative, and we outpaced those figures in very short order, representing savings to the school districts, but most importantly, providing high-quality health care to our employees.
And I think if I could add to that, Mrs. Williams, I think another example right here in our community that some may be aware of is there's a similar clinic that runs at the Volvo Truck Group, the old Mack plant. And the employees there, my understanding is absolutely love that clinic. My daughter's interning there this summer, and she's talked about it. I mean, she hasn't used it, but she hears other employees talking about the clinic. So I think that's a positive notation in this community as well. I should add as well, it's not just for our employees, but it's also for their dependents. So the employee that's on our health insurance and has dependents on our health insurance, it's available to their family member dependents as well. So, you know, if your sick child visits and sports physicals and all of those things can be handled through there. Lab work can also be drawn, some lab work can be drawn right there in the clinic, so you don't have to go out to another lab to get your lab work done. We've also talked about onboarding and TB tests and potentially growing into workers' comp and potentially growing into our retiree set. So there's many more ways that we can get through there. DOT drug testing, there's lots of other avenues we can grow to after we get going and get this thing kicked off.
Thank you, Mr. Prue. Thank you, Dr. Savine. Colleagues, any other questions? Okay, then we're ready to vote. So we have a motion and a second to approve the award renewals and procurements as read by Mr. Bickford. All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? All right, so we have 6 affirmative, 1 in opposition, and the student board member concurs with the majority. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Our next agenda item is approved with naming rights for the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation, Inc.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Savine. This matter in front of you is relating to the naming rights agreement that the Board of Education has entered into with the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation. That agreement was amended November 3rd, 2020 to include a brick paver program for the sidewalk in front of the school. As part of your packet here, you have a listing of bricks to be approved under that program. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and to seek your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Frill. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the right-of-way agreement between the Board of Education and the City of Hagerstown.
Okay, that's not the motion I was looking for.
I'm sorry.
We're looking for the one on the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. Bricks.
I got
I almost did the same thing.
I'm missing it.
it. Want me to read it?
But we'll come back to you for another motion.
Move to approve the naming rights received and committed by the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation Brick Paver Program.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any questions? Any discussion?
Believe that.
Ready to vote? We're voting to approve the naming rights received and committed by the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation Brick Paver Program. All those in favor? All right. We have a unanimous vote and the student member concurs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have it?
All right. And next up, we have consideration of a right-of-way agreement between the Board of Education and the City of Hagerstown.
Second.
Second what?
You already read it.
We're moving along tonight.
Oh, I don't know.
I would advise that it should probably give a summary.
You all are making up the rules. Mrs. Ram.
The City of Hagerstown has requested that the Board of Education grant a right-of-way on the board's property located at 1323 Salem Avenue for the purpose of constructing, reconstructing, inspecting, operating, and maintaining an electric and communication system, including all trenches, conduits, cables, poles, guy wires, and anchors, and other facilities under, over, and upon the property. The City of Hagerstown plans to use this right-of-way for the installation of a wooden utility pole, anchor, and associated down guy wire to support upgraded overhead HLD aerial facilities which are necessary due to current and future electrical load growth in the area. Staff has reviewed the request and is recommending that the Board of Education grant the right-of-way to the City of Hagerstown.
Thank you, Mrs. Rand. Mr. Gestford, you're on.
I'll keep you on the toes tonight, Ms. Williams.
You're on.
This time I move the approval of the right-of-way agreement between the Board of Education and the City of Hagerstown.
Thank you, Mr. Gestford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the right-of-way agreement between the Board of Education and the City of Hagerstown. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote. Student member concurs, and we have a motion carried. And that brings us back to the second half of the superintendent's report. Dr. Sovine.
Thank you, President Williams and members of the board. Certainly my pleasure to highlight our apprenticeship program once again. Have team members Dr. Gary Willow, Associate Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, and Carly Pumphrey, our Supervisor of English Language Arts and Social Studies, coming forward. Before they provide tonight's report, as I mentioned, we recognize that several times through the previous school year, we highlighted our #1 ranked apprenticeship program. Last year, it was enhanced with a reading tutor apprenticeship, and we have some amazing results tonight in terms of how this program has provided tremendous support and tremendous student outcome gains at our kindergarten, first grade, and second grade levels.
Good evening again, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. It is a pleasure to be up in front of you to talk a little bit more about the reading apprenticeship tutor. So we have to probably start by going a little bit back in time where we first had the opportunity to apply for Maryland Leads. And there were two areas within Maryland Leads that we specifically wanted to target. One of those was ensuring that all of our students were able to read by third grade, the science of reading, promoting literacy in the elementary school. And we know from research that by third grade, if a student is not reading on grade level, it becomes harder, not impossible, but harder to close those gaps. So supporting our youngest learners, especially coming out of the pandemic, was extremely important to us at that time. The second part, though, was really the opportunity to begin thinking of grow your own. And so what we know from research is that 60% of teachers teach within 20 miles of where they grew up. And we, at the time, we thought, all right, how do we promote the idea of teaching here within Washington County? We also know that if research, again, most teachers, not all by any means, but over half, have made up their mind by the time their senior year of high school. So, knowing that from 9th grade to their senior year is instrumental in any Grow Your Own program, and knowing that we had challenges with helping our youngest learners before the pandemic, but probably greater gaps after the pandemic. So how do we combine the two into a program, which is where we came up with the idea of the Reading Apprenticeship tutoring program. And so we're very excited. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Pumphrey to share a little bit more and the results.
So again, a little bit of a review. When to select our reading tutor apprentices, they had to apply. They submitted an application, even through our school system, a full AppleTrack application with references and cover letter, resume, all of that. We then had an interview with our principals, and our principals were part of the selection process for choosing the apprentice to come to their school. And we provided 2 full days of training for all of our hired apprentices. And that included, on the screen you'll see some of the interventions, but as well as just basics of how to pronounce letter sounds and how to support our students who are learning to read. Again, a little review. This is a typical schedule of a reading tutor apprentice. They work with students every 20 minutes, either with an individual student or with a group of students, and they provide a very specific intervention for that student based on their needs. So what are the results? I will tell you that when I pulled the data at the end of the school year, I went to Dr. Willow with a lot of excitement. I knew throughout the whole year that we were having an impact on students, and then the actual numbers were pretty impressive. We had 32 total reading tutor apprentices who worked with 568 elementary students across the school year. They worked with those students for a minimum of 4 consecutive weeks to provide intensive interventions. That totaled over 700,000 minutes or 12,000 hours of supplemental instruction. Keep in mind, this is in addition to the support they're getting from their classroom teachers, from their intervention teachers, and other paraprofessionals. So of the 528 students, 93%, almost all of the students showed growth. We give an assessment at the beginning of the year and then again at the end of the year using DIBELS and our Lexile assessment. We had 127 of the students actually close a gap. And I know that might sound like, I mean, that's a quarter of the students, but that's significant impact. Closing a gap is sometimes 2 or more years below grade level, and that usually takes multiple years to do. And then another impressive number, 294 of the students, or over half of the students that worked with our reading tutor apprentices, are no longer at risk. That means they do not need supplemental instruction. I know, I get chills. I think it's very exciting news. And again, closing gaps and making this kind of growth is not just in the hands of the reading tutor apprentices. This was a team approach with obviously the other paraprofessionals, the classroom teachers, the administrators who supported them. But at the end of the day, these are students who were struggling to learn to read, who were at risk of having reading difficulties from 3rd grade and beyond, and they no longer have that risk. So it's a huge celebration. We appreciate the reading tutor apprentices, not on the screen, but something that I was privileged to do. Every time I met with a reading tutor apprentice, I would say, "What do you like about this job?" Every one of them, all 32, the very first response was, "I love to see the impact I have on the students. I'm making a difference in their lives." And they knew it. That's what is going to get people to enter the teaching field, and that's going to help us grow our own and keep attracting teachers who, all of our teachers love to see the impact that they have on our students.
So what are our next steps as we go into year 2? I'm happy to share that we have 37 reading tutor apprentices this year. So we went from 32 to 37, again, using the Maryland Leads grant, 30 new tutors and 7 returning tutors. And the reason most of our tutors last year were seniors. So almost all but the exception, I think, of 3 juniors returned. And for some of them, that was a challenge with their schedule as they had progressed and are now taking HCC classes or others. It just doesn't quite work as it did their junior year. And so now what we've probably realized as we were going through this, you learn a lot. And one of the things that working with the CT office, Ms. Moore, Mr. Alshire, Human Resources Office, we need to do a little bit more mentoring for those that want to become teachers. We did, I believe, a really effective job of training them on how to lead interventions within the classroom. But I'm not sure we were as effective as we could have been. Now I want to teach, so what? How do we help them actually take advantage of the HCC pathways, of the dual credit pathways, so that that translates into a teaching job? We are going to follow this group a little more closely to see how many actually do become teachers. I am proud to announce that we have at least 1 tutor that's now a paraprofessional with WCPS that's in our county, and we have several of the group that went into teacher preparation programs. So it'll be curious to see as we go through the years here with the cohort to be able to see who actually stayed with it, who followed up, and be able to even still communicate with some of them. We talked earlier today, we want to send a letter out, it's important to know they left us, they graduated. So they don't necessarily know this impact. I think they do because they've worked with students every day, but how do we formalize that? How do we celebrate this group in conjunction with all of the work of our teachers, administrators, and our other paraprofessionals have done to help close those gaps? So that's what we're looking at next, is the mentor support and expanding those partnerships and pathways. We have enough Maryland leads where we know we can do this again for this upcoming school year, and we're hoping that the state will allow us to go one more year beyond this and keep it grant funded so we can do at least 2 more cohorts with this.
Thank you, Dr. Willow. I know you love this as much as I do, and, and to see the impact that these student tutors have had on these young people is just almost brings me to tears. But and then Dr. Pumphrey, to hear you talk about the intrinsic value to the students when they say, "I've made a difference." You know, what I've done, what I've given has made a difference in the life of a young person, another young person.
In the schools when I visited and got to watch them with their students, and the professionalism of those tutors was amazing, and the patient kindness that they showed them on an individual basis sometimes, you could see the kid light up. It beyond compare program.
And while these tutors are helping the students with the nuts and bolts of reading, I would hope that there's time that the mentors, the tutors can share their love of reading, because I have to believe that these kids are also doing this because they are readers and they love to read and they want to share their love of reading with others. So I hope there's opportunity for them to read together, read to each other.
Absolutely.
You know.
And many share that in their interviews, that's partly why they say, I love to read and I want to help others love to read as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I was on the Curriculum and Instruction Committee when this all came to fruition, and I was so excited about it. And I think one of the benefits of the reading tutors is they get to see great teachers at work. And then they get excited about that. And they learn. I mean, when you're in the classroom, you're learning. And when they become teachers, they will have all this knowledge from working with these great teachers. It gives them a head start. So it's a wonderful program. I'm so excited about it.
Thank you so much for this amazing, organizing this amazing program. I know personally a couple people at my high school who participated, and they absolutely loved it and had a very positive experience. I know that there's at least two teacher CTE programs, one at Tech High and then one at North High. So I was wondering if you know if there are any students who participate in those programs who also participate in the reading apprenticeship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we absolutely have several of them who do both programs.
Okay, I just didn't know if that was available with scheduling.
And we also have Teacher Academy programs at Hancock and Clear Spring High School as well.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was a possibility with scheduling, but thank you.
And I just want to say I've served a tutor at Fountaindale Elementary School here some months ago. Did an excellent job. Yeah.
Ditto.
So Dr. Savine, are you ready to do your update next?
Yes, I have one update for the public. I believe one of the most in-demand requests for schools at this time of the year is school supply list. We actually have those lists posted by school on our website located at wcpsmd.com. If your child attends one of our Title I schools, the school will provide any supplies that students need. Generally speaking, high school students don't need supplies for the first few days of school. They'll have a better idea of what they need when they begin their classes after the first week of school. I know many of our schools host orientation nights or back-to-school events. Schools will be sending families that information directly, so please keep an eye out for those announcements. President Williams, members of the board, that concludes my update.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Okay, next we have personnel action, and we have Dr. Webster here, our Associate Superintendent for Administration and Leadership.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several personnel actions for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Thank you, Dr. Webster. Is there a motion, please?
President Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. All those in favor of the approval of personnel actions dated Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, as presented in closed session, please raise your hand. All right, we have a unanimous vote. Motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, under reports to the board, we have board member committee reports. On there with curriculum and instruction, Dr. Zentmeyer.
C&I will meet here 2 p.m. August 17th. We'll be discussing summer professional learning updates, as well as the Bester and Pangborn elementary and math literacy updates, and secondary ELA resources.
Thank you. Facilities Committee, Mr. Gessford?
Yes, we'll be having our facilities meeting on October the 29th, and anyone's welcome to attend.
August. Finance Committee, Mr. Evans?
We will meet on Monday, August 7th, a week from yesterday, at 9 a.m., I believe it is.
And Human Resources, Mrs. Murray?
Yes, we will meet Tuesday, September 12th, 1 p.m. in the board conference room.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Policy Review and Development Committee, Mr. Bickford?
We're eating, we're meeting, we're talking about food trucks. We're meeting next Tuesday, the 8th at 1 p.m.
Okay, so that's 8/8 at 1 p.m.?
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes care of our committee reports. Under miscellaneous business, we have, as usual, our future agenda items. You have a list of future agenda items that has been provided in your packet. Listed are some things for the August meetings. We will be looking at the fiscal year 2025 general fund operating budget calendar. We will have 2 second readings of proposed policies, 2 that we did the first readings of this evening. That would be policy KD, opportunity for public comment at board, business meetings, town meetings, public hearings, and the procedures governing such proceedings, and also the second reading of proposed changes to policy BDDJ, that's a lot of Ds, BDDJ, broadcasting and recording of Board of Education meetings. So that's what's coming up for our August meeting on the 15th. That brings us to board member comments. Would you like to begin down there again?
Sure. You can probably tell it's been a crybaby month for me. Thank you, Carly, for continuing it into August. New great grand happy tears. A YouTube video captured me, a straight A bio student, entered a beloved classroom, and the teacher yelled, "Sit down, shut up, don't move, or you will automatically fail my class." The seats were in a circle around another desk, and on the desk was a goldfish in a bowl. The teacher said again, "Sit down, shut up, don't move," and left the room. Students looked at each other with a "what the heck" look, much weighing of options and waiting. A fellow student said, "The heck with this," in more colorful language, got up, put the fish back in the bowl. Enter teacher. "Look what the world has done to you. You betrayed yourself." For what? Powerful lesson for standing up for what is right. Sad tears. Then I went to see Sound of Freedom. Yikes. It was an uncomfortable story. I used more colorful language, but I know we're being recorded. It needed to be told, especially for us who live on the intersection of 70 and 81 and can be in 14 different states in 4 hours. The trillion-dollar child slavery business in the U.S. alone, very unhappy tears. Ronald Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. We don't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It has to be fought for, protected, handed on, so that when we spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it is to be free, not what it was to be free." I ended the month with a picture of my dad on the front page of the Herald Mail, hugging our former First Lady. He was being honored as a Korean War vet. He was deployed at 17, and watched his brother die in action. I never heard the details of his stint in the Army. We just didn't talk about it. But the War Memorial where the old North High stood, I listened as my son-in-law told the story and sobbed. Goodbye, July. Hello, August. Today in history, a good note. 88 years ago, our Maryland flag was adopted. 14 years ago, our State House was honored for being the oldest continuously used legislative building. Still is. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and please be one of those who put the fish back in the bowl. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Mr. Evans?
Still the best state flag, even if you're from Texas. I have nothing. Enjoy the rest of your summer. It is going by way too quickly, but hopefully everyone feels the same, because that means you're having fun. So enjoy the rest of your summer, everyone, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Mr. Gessler?
Yeah, thank you. I think we have a few teachers that'll be showing up very soon to start the new school year again, so I'd like to welcome them all. I know the summer has gone fast, but we will be appreciating your efforts of being here, and we look forward to a great school year.
Thank you. Mr. Stalfer?
I was told earlier this evening to say ditto, so that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Stalfer.
Inside joke.
Mr. Bickford?
Nothing for me. Ditto.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. That was very, very nice. And I can't add anything else to that.
Thank you, Linda.
Yes.
I would like to proudly announce that I'm going to be attending the Maryland Association of Boards of Education new student member conference on Thursday with all the other new student members in the state, as well as our new state Board of Education member, which I'm very excited about. I hope I get some good insight on how to be more productive for my community and my fellow students. And I would also like to congratulate the Skills USA winner. That's incredibly impressive, as well as our Future Farmers of America winners. And I would like to implore teachers and students to push extracurriculars and outside activities in the community this next coming year. It is truly an amazing area of exploration where you can find yourself and be more at peace with yourself and enjoy your time more outside of school.
Thank you. Colleagues, thank you for a great day of meetings. Dr. Savine, thank you. Do you have any parting words for us?
Just a few comments. I just want to shine the light on the benefits of our reading apprenticeship program. You heard earlier this evening the tremendous impact that it's had on student reading gains for our youngest learners, and the great potential that the Reading Tutor Apprenticeship has for growing our own future teachers here in Washington County Public Schools.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, thank you again. Dr. Savine, thank you.